Well, Rafa, thank you for coming into 160 Studios here in Delray Beach. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe, for having me.
Yeah, last time you and I ran across each other was ISHLT show.
Yeah.
And you had a chance to show me the VPS platform, so that was really exciting.
Yes, yeah. Joe, we're pretty excited about the progress, where we are. It's an interesting space, and we're super happy about the technology. Pretty proud of what we've done.
Good. Tell me a little bit about your background first, Rafa, and then take me into VPS, the genesis of it, and what's driving it forward.
Yeah, sure. So my background, I'm a scientist with a little bit of business. I've done some consulting in the past. Initially, I was working in public health. I've been in research and public health maybe half of my life. Worked with WHO in Africa. Went to Emory for my master's, worked in HIV public health projects. And then I came back to science, but I wanted to do a PhD, not only just focus on the science, but focus on the translation of the science. So my frustration back then was we do a lot of research and nothing happens with it. So the translation of what happens with a technology or a drug, and then how do you commercialize that? So that was my PhD. And in the process, I met the founder of VPS, and the inventor, the scientist behind the technology. He had been working on organ preservation for about 40 years. And I started becoming friends with him. He was my mentor. I helped him out apply for a few grants. And that's really how VPS started. Him and a business partner of him started the company. And I was just the scientist, business guy trying to apply for grants and money to be able to fund the company. We had a few investors at the beginning. And everything started really from, we had a perfusion system for limbs. We had a DoD grant for about $1 million to develop a perfusion system to keep limbs alive for the military. We're in San Antonio. San Antonio has a huge military presence and a lot of research grants for military research. And that's really how the company started. We started working with the military, and then we hired a fantastic engineer that really took the technology, the initial idea from the inventor, and then developed into more of an actual medical device with manufacturing capability. And that's kind of where we split. The idea of the company really was from limbs to really use this technology for hearts. Mm-hmm. The two founders had tried to do this before. They were the founders of another company, a very successful company now. But the main idea really was to do a perfusion system, an active system as simple as the cooler, kind of what they use now for organ transportation for hearts, but actively keeping the organ alive. So that was about 6 years ago. I was with them. I was really fascinated about the technology. I saw the need in the space. And I started from really working on the science. And one thing as a scientist, you want to make sure that you're using evidence-based technology, right? So how to prove that? So we built a lab. We started hiring scientists, engineers. So the engineers started developing the technology, and we were testing it in the lab with collaborators. So we were creating relationships, and then really we started getting more money. We raised about $7.5 million. And the last 2 years is where we've been really proving the technology. The device has gone through several prototypes. The prototype that we have now is the one we're going to use for the GLP animal study for the FDA. And then, yeah, so I was a scientist. I was the director of research, then chief technology officer, and about a year ago, they appointed me CEO, which is a big responsibility. Mm-hmm. But I'm passionate about the industry, the device, and the technology. I felt that there's been a gap. In the last 60 years, nothing has really moved the needle. There's really cool technology out there finally, but there's still so much to do. So that's kind of the background of VPS. We're in San Antonio, Texas. We're a very small company. We're about 11 people in the team, engineers, scientists, clinicians, and then the business guys.
So this has been an area that's really exploded the last few years. I'd say the last 4 to 6 years on, obviously, the transplant business. I mean, the number I had here, global transplantation market worldwide is $68 billion, right? So obviously there's a lot of verticals within that, and certainly organs, heart, lung, kidney, liver, right? Then logistics, et cetera. But within that, there's been a lot of players that have come out, certainly Transmedics, Paragonix, BTL, LifePort, Ex Vivo. So there's a market there. What is unique about the VPS platform technologically that is a clear differentiator? And tell me the philosophical differences between this and other platforms.
Yeah, so specifically for organ preservation, there's really two main areas, right? There's the normothermic, so keeping the organ at body temperature, alive, outside of the body. And then there's the other side, which is the hypothermic. So traditionally, the way we've been keeping organs alive since organ transplantation came to be in the last 60 years is really in an ice, right? You lower the temperature, lower the metabolism, and you can keep the organ alive for a certain amount of time. The time depends on the type of organ. So hearts, traditionally, the data is very clear that if you keep it in the cooler for more than 4 hours, the survival of the patient, if you transplant that heart, it significantly reduces. The standard of care is 4 hours, but it's between 4 and 6 really where the transplant can happen. So in the area of hypothermic perfusion, that's where that's our main focus is we wanted to develop a device that surgeons are used to using cold static storage. It's simple, it's very inexpensive, but it's limited, right? It limits you where you can take organs, for example, hearts, reduces the time that you can keep the heart alive in the cooler. So our idea was keeping it as simple as possible, close to the cooler, but at the same time adding technology to be able to preserve the heart longer than the standard of care. In the other side of the picture, you have normothermic machines, which have been great. I mean, there's some great technology that came out a few years ago, with like Transmedics, and they're in the normothermic space, which keeps the organ alive. You can do tests on it. So where we come in is really what we've seen in the market is that most machines tend to be pretty bulky, pretty big, especially if you're using normothermic. You need roller pumps. Most companies use roller pumps. So our idea was, why can't we just be innovative? I mean, there's innovations where you can deliver a pill and you can have a camera inside your body. Why can't there be innovations like that for organ transportation? I mean, this is the most precious gift, right? Someone's donating an organ to be able to save a life. So the technology, the idea of the company was like, well, let's create cool technology, apply it to organ preservation, and you don't need a big machine. We can make everything small. And basically, that's the differentiator. So what we've done is, instead of using big, large machines, using blood or roller pumps, we use pneumatic pumps from industry that have been used for years into a simple perfusion technology. And we made it all as compact as possible to be able to be transportable, easy to use, and that's really where we come in. So the head of the device has all the pumps, the filters, the oxygenator, and then the case is pretty small to be able to keep it cold with basically with passive cooling instead of refrigerations or electronic components to keep it cold. I think that's where we come in. Surgeons want something simple. They're used to the ice chest. So why can't we provide something like that, and keep the organ alive? And that's really where I think we've shown that's our strength.
Mm-hmm. Why is smaller better? So that's one question. And the other is, what is the current standard of care in clinical trials, and what does the VPS platform hope to stretch that time to? And what does that mean to a potential patient?
So why is small better? Like the cooler, for example. The cooler is very simple, right? It's a small case. You put an organ in there and you can transport it. These hearts have to be transported sometimes from Atlanta to Austin, Texas, or Atlanta, San Antonio, long distances within a certain radius, right? Mm-hmm. So small has always been make it portable. Why can't it be a portable machine? They are portable machines. Transmedics has a portable machine, but it's fairly large. You need a special airplane. You need a lot of people to carry it. So the idea was, that's the first thing. That's a differentiator. Have a perfusion system that is simple, small, and portable. And then the standard of care has been, like I said, 4 hours in the cooler. But the evidence it's pretty clear that the heart needs oxygen. It's the organ besides the brain in the body that needs a lot of oxygen. It needs oxygen to keep it alive. The cardiomyocytes, after 4 hours without oxygen, they start dying. And the primary graft dysfunction after transplantation of a heart after 4 hours in static cold storage, it goes up. So the technology, what we do is we keep it cold, so we lower metabolism. We use Perfusate that is commercially available. Actually, they use it for kidney pumps. Lifeport has been around for many years. They were the first organ perfusion company to be able to transport organs in a device, in a machine. They use it for kidneys. We use their same Perfusate. It's called UW Machine Perfusion Solution. It's a crystalloid. It has a lot of potassium, so the heart is arrested, at basically a cardioplegic state. We perfuse the organ with oxygen. We saturate the solution with oxygen, and basically what we do is basic biology. We deliver nutrients to the cells and oxygen to keep those cells alive. And also, the cool thing of our device is that we use the oxygen pressure for two reasons. We use the oxygen as a pneumatic device, basically, by providing the pressure for the pumps to deliver the perfusion to the heart. And we use the oxygen to keep the cells alive.
So you were sharing with me that you've had some recent animal labs that you're doing, and you want to push the envelope, right? So of the, what's the term, cross clamp time. While the heart may be 4 hours, you might only get 3 hours in the cooler, and then maybe, give or take hours on the other side of that with the surgery. So if I extend this out to 6 hours, what benefit does that have for me? Do I get to increase the radius for the donor? Do I get to accommodate for complications when I'm in the middle of the OR? And finally, how many hearts are not used with the intention of the donor who's giving it to find its way to a recipient?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do, like you said, so the standard of care really is 4 hours, 4 to 6, pushing it. Standard of care is 4 hours for heart preservation. And that means 4 hours from cross clamp to cross clamp. What we're trying to do is we want an indication of use of 6 hours of perfusion time in the system, plus an hour and a half of cross clamp time, depending on what the surgery goes. Obviously, this will be determined in the clinical trial. What we're trying to get from the FDA is a 6-hour indication of use in perfusion plus the cross clamp time. That creates, I think, opens the doors to extending the preservation time of the heart. You can go longer distance. With a longer preservation time, you obviously can take hearts from different areas. Matches that are from far away, you can actually bring them to your center. So that's an advantage of it. And the other one is complications, right? There's always complications in surgery sometimes. Doctors, if they have the certainty, our goal as a company is to develop the scientific evidence, the clinical evidence, to demonstrate that we can keep a heart in the device safely and effectively. And that's what we're going to work on with the FDA, our animal trial, our clinical trial. Then on the amount of hearts that are lost, so just to give you an example. So in the United States, I think last year there were about 12,000 hearts that were donated. They were suitable organs. Only about 30% of those hearts were used in the United States. 70% were not used for different reasons. Logistics, maybe the heart was viable and suitable for transplantation, but when it arrived to the center, maybe it had complications. The fact is that 70% of hearts that are donated from donors that give the gift of life, are not used. Our goal is out of those 30% that are currently used, about 60% of those are still using standard of care, cooler. About 30%, they use Paragonics, which they've done a great job, and it's an improvement over the standard of care. And then about 10% are those extended criteria hearts, DCD hearts, that are used in a transmedic system. What we're trying to do is provide another option to be able to extend the time and capture some of that market share from the 30% that is currently being used. And then the 70% that are not used, to start using our system. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. Provide an alternative, provide a device that can capture some of those unused hearts. We want to increase organ utilization rate in the United States. I mean, now there's laws that are being debated. I think Congress met. There's an audience with UNOS. Because we need to improve organ utilization rate. There's so many patients waiting. The cardiac failure space. LVADs do a great job, the artificial heart as well. But if there are 70% of hearts that are just wasted every year, what can we do to improve that? And that's kind of where we fit in as well.
Yeah, that's an exciting business for sure, and especially as heart disease continues to be the #1 killer, if I'm not mistaken, in the United States. We're seeing congestive heart failure increase. We're starting to see diabetes increase. All those patients, those end up becoming feeder systems to the need for a heart due to faulty heart failure. So that's exciting. So what's happening over the next 6, 12, 18 months with VPS? What are we going to on clinicals? What are we doing on fundraising? Are there any events that you're at that people can come talk to you and visit you?
Yeah, sure. So it's a pretty exciting time for us. Like I said, the last really 3 years has been developing in-house evidence. A lot of our lab tests are in-house. We use Texas Heart Institute for our heart transplants in a pig animal model. So really in the next 6 months, there are 3 big milestones that we need to accomplish, 6 months to a year. The immediate milestone is finishing our GLP animal study for the FDA. We met with the FDA. We have breakthrough device designation, which allows us to communicate with them. We have a really good relationship with them. We're trying to do everything they ask. We want to make sure that our device is safe and that we show efficacy in our clinical trial. But the first step is demonstrating safety. And how do you demonstrate safety in an animal study? And the gold standard to do this is to do a transplant study, a transplant where you take a heart from a pig, put it in our device, put it into another pig. And that's what we're working on. So that's going to happen in the next, we're trying to start the study about November. We're hoping to end January, February, the entire study, submit everything to the FDA and apply for an IDE. So right now, in terms of fundraising, we're fundraising to finish that round. It's basically our seed round. Mm-hmm. With that, we're done with our seed round. And then immediately after that, our intent is to do an early feasibility clinical trial. The reason why we're doing this strategically is because we want to go demonstrate efficacy and safety in a small human study clinical trial. We have some candidates to do this. Duke has shown interest to do that. Duke has been amazing. They did the Transmedics trials. They use Paragonics. I think they're doing ex vivo, and they're fantastic surgeons. And it'll be a small early feasibility clinical trial for thinking about 10 patients. We don't know yet what the FDA will say, depending on our results from the animal study. So that's the second milestone. For that, next year we'll be raising about $12 million just to pay for that and make improvements on the prototype. And then immediately after that, we're a PMA, we're a Class 3 device. Mm-hmm. So we have to do a full pivotal clinical trial. So depending on the early feasibility trial results, then that will determine the number of patients for the pivotal trial. And that will happen the next year to 2 years with the different centers across the United States. For that, we'll have to do another raise. So finishing this year, we'll do a Series A. We'll be in LSI MedTech in Barcelona in September presenting. We basically finished almost all the preclinical work in-house, and we're ready to start doing the human trials. Our goal is to obviously do standard criteria hearts for the clinical trial, but we're probably going to end up adding extended and potentially DCD hearts. We have evidence. We've done some work in-house where we can also do those type of hearts. So that's what's happening. We've raised about $7.5 million locally. And now we're going from being a startup to mm-hmm. becoming a real company, mm-hmm. where we now need institutional investors to support us through this journey and get it to where it's a clinical product. Mm-hmm. The product now is still a prototype. Obviously, the machine works really well in the animal studies. What you see now is just the device, but we also have a transport case that keeps it cold. We're with the oxygen, and that's what the surgeons will be using to transport it. So that's where we are, Joe. It's an exciting time. We've come a really long way with, not that much money, about $7 million just to take us all the way here, a very small group of people. And we're now hiring new leaders and expanding our team. We want the best of the best. Very exciting time, and certainly very noble device and noble platform that's much needed in the industry. I appreciate you sharing the stories with us. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Okay, Rafa, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Always. I'm Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.